Hi and welcome everybody to our NMS Prime podcast. Today I am happy to give you an update about our current release notes. And for all of you who don't know NMS Prime is an all-in-one OSS provisioning and monitoring solution to provision and monitor DOCSIS, FTTH, DSL, and Wi-Fi technology. It's highly based on open source and open standards. And for all small and mid-sized operators, we also include a basic CRM functionality. Today, I'm happy to have with me in our show, Ole Ernst, our CTO. Welcome, Ole.
Thanks, Thorsten. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the CTO of NMS Prime, in the company since 7 years by now. Originally coming from a university background, we do have cooperations with the university, and that's how I came to the company. And I'm still doing some guest lectures there and trying to find the bright new minds of the university to convince them for our company, but obviously mostly involved with NMS Prime.
Yeah, and thanks, Ole. And our second guest today is Christian Schramm. Christian is one of our core developers. He is developing a lot of the stuff in the background of NMS Prime. He's a full stack developer. So welcome, Christian Schramm.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, great to be here. Today I want to talk as well about the new release, about the stuff we brought into the new release, and give a bit more insights to the new features that we have developed.
So before we start, I'd like to give a little bit of a presentation for everyone who is new to our channel. What is NMS Prime? So NMS Prime is originally coming from a cable operator, which my grandfather founded many, many years ago. And out of our own experience, we have developed a software suite, which is called NMS Prime, NMS for Network Management System. What we are doing is that we have a couple of applications, which you see here on this slide. There are a bunch of community applications which are highly focused on provisioning for DOCSIS, FTTH, and all other technologies. And on top of that, we have a lot of enterprise applications with a high focus on monitoring, detection, assurance, and all these kind of things. If we talk about the provisioning, I don't like to go too much into detail, but what you see here is that we can work with all the common CCAP vendors that are out there. And of course, also for FTTH devices and for other devices, we can connect NMS Prime to, for example, a Nokia, which will be part of our discussion also today. On top of that, you can configure and monitor all different kinds of modems and optical network units, so in use. And we are doing this by combining a lot of cool open source tools like TFTP, for example, or KADHCP. And additionally, over all these different applications that you are seeing here, we are building our platform, which you could say is kind of an umbrella network management system. Supported technologies, I've mentioned now a couple of times all the services that we are doing: DHCP, TFTP, DNS, TR69, and auto configuration service, as well as radios and so on. On the monitoring side of things, for all of you who are new to our channel, there's a couple of interesting changes that we have done in our recent release, which we will discuss also today. We introduced Telegraph to our product suite, and we have a bunch of other cool systems that we will later go through in more detail. From a monitoring side of things, we can not just monitor all the CCAPs and the OLTs, but we can also monitor cable modems and ONUs and CPEs. But this is, I think, generally something that all of you who are familiar with our channel, one of our core competencies. So, but coming back to our current release, so there's a bunch of very cool and interesting stuff happening within our new version 3.2. And I think, Ole, to get it smoothly started, I think it's been a time since we released our last version, and not so much active on our YouTube channel, but we will do more videos in the future. And yeah, what came to your mind when you think about version 3.2?
Yeah, so first off, as you said, more when a year no updates, but we did a lot in the background. You will see we did a lot of new modules for various different technologies. For example, for the Nokia Altiplano FTTH side of things. We looked also for the Huawei OLTs and ONTs. We have a new module. And we see this now in the market. A lot of customers are coming back. These were really needed features. And we even see new customers coming along, which talked about this in the years before. And back then we didn't have it, but now we do. And so I think this opens up quite new possibilities and opportunities for us. But I think we can maybe just go step by step through them. And
yeah, sure. So let's go through them step by step. So I think one of the big things you mentioned already, the Nokia Altiplano system. Nokia makes a lot of great and big news out there about their OLT platform, and what we can basically do, Ole, is that we are interfering with them, and maybe you can...
Yeah, basically, so they have a great API to work with. It's intent based, so it's quite high level to work with. And we have kind of a templating engine, because all the intents are a little bit different for the various versions of Altiplano and the various customers. And we can adjust to it very easily. And then the layer 2 provisioning is done via Altiplano, basically. And on top of this, because Altiplano does not provide layer 3 services or provisioning of them, and that's why we come into place there with our ACS server. We are using Genie ACS in the background for provisioning telephony, Wi-Fi, and such things. And also, besides this, of course, we also do the monitoring, just like we do in DOCSIS. So we can get, of course, the online state, but also the various levels of the downstream, upstream channels and the SNRs and so on. We don't pull this ourselves. We actually interface with the OpenTSTP from Altiplano. So this works pretty well. And we have our Grafana dashboard to show all these metrics.
Yeah, that's super cool. And if I understand it correctly, we can provision all the devices, not just the OLTs, also the ONUs and the optical devices behind the OLT, and provision them and get them monitored. And that's kind of a new application that we are introducing with our new release version 3.2. Okay. Yeah, Christian, let's jump to the next point, document management. What is this and why is it needed and important?
Yeah, so we had a basic document management functionality in our system already, but it lacked quite some features. Also, we had customer complaints that the LaTeX templating was too complicated, so we decided to switch to a HTML-based and template engine, and also it's now like editable rightly in the browser, so you can create the new documents for certain events, like new contract. If you new contract information, this is done automatically. And if you want to change something, you can do it right in the browser and then send this to the customer, even with the customer control center, if you like. So yeah, there's some amazing stuff there. And
yeah, I mean, maybe just that I understand it correctly, the main purpose of the document management system is that our customers have like a general application where they can do all kind of different things in respect to managing the documents that they are changing with their customers, right? Is this
exactly? So mainly it's for customer communication, and then you have, for example, for billing system, you need to generate documents, and for other interactions with their respective customer, you need to create documents, and this is all stored in the contract model so that you can find all the documents in one place now. Mm-hmm.
Cool. I think one of the easy examples is if you connect a new customer, then the new customer gets like a connection information, I think we call it. And if, like, for example, there's a VoIP change in the system, then the customer gets informed that something has changed, and all these kind of things. You have a generic kind of a templating engine, which before was LaTeX based and is now based on a HTML framework. So this is how I understood it. Is this right, Christian?
Yes, we changed this to this HTML engine basically, and there you can make templates and include your own vendor logos or your own invoice template, however you like it, but it's now much simpler and also could be done by the customer directly, and you can check the style and the look directly in the browser, so it's much easier accessible for our customers to do this by themselves.
All right, Ole, then let's talk about the next point, which is the SmartONT. What is SmartONT and why is it useful?
So this was introduced for mainly for the smart meters in the DACH region, mostly in the Switzerland region. The customer wants to have auto provision for a lot of ONTs, and there they use a lot of Huawei gear. And there we introduced an automatic, basically zero-touch provisioning for the devices without having to rely on the Huawei software itself. So basically what we do is we have an SNMP trap daemon in our built-in. So basically we're listening to SNMP traps coming from the OLT, which means that a new device is coming up. And then we automatically connect via command line to the device, because this is the only way to do it without using the Huawei proprietary gear. And then we just set up the correct commands which are needed to get the ONT up and running. And from there on, the customer can decide. Some customers, they just provide static IP addresses by themselves. We also have customers now who are using our DHCP and DNS server to automatically provision the smart meters behind. And then basically on top of this, the smart meter is talking with the head end of their vendor. So basically what we do is provide the layer 2 or the layer 3 connectivity, and the whole package is there. We have multiple flavors because every customer is a little bit different, but we can easily adjust this using our flavors, and this will also be possible with other vendors. For example, if we are talking about ZTE, which also need SSH access to get some ONTs running, this is just as well possible. So we have kind of this framework now, and we can easily adjust it to any vendor we want.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So I think for our American customers, it's maybe important to add that, especially in European, there's a lot of regulation happening with smart metering, and I don't have the correct rules in mind. I don't know if any one of you has, but I think there's a certain deadline at which you have to have a minimum threshold of smart meters in your house connected. And since many of the cable operators or network operators are also like energy companies, like typical municipalities, they are kind of rolling out at bigger scale, and I think Switzerland is far more ahead than the German market, these kind of smart meter technology. And I think the idea, at least from a regulation point of view behind it, is to get the energy grid much more smarter than it is right now. And I think that's why we see a lot of things happening there, and that's why it's a specific use case where we also adapt it towards some of our customer needs.
And just chime in, it's not really just about smart meters in the end. Since we provision the ONTs and the OLTs, we can basically provide any service, also normal high-speed internet service to the customers, or telephony or whatever. So it can be used for any purpose, but in this special instance, this is for the smart meters.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the next point is statistic. We have developed a new statistic app within release 3.2. Christian, what is statistic application about?
So just to get a bit the broader perspective here, the statistic module is mainly a CRM tool, and basically if you want to know more about your contract that you have and that how many contracts are new this month, last year, all these statistics that are interesting for marketing and different branches in your company. We developed this statistics module where you can create queries and basically query for certain KPIs in your company, and then you get like a donut dashboard, a beautiful dashboard with all those statistics, and then you can revisit this every month, every quarter, whichever you like, and you get basically the summary of this data.
Cool. So I think we will have a second video about the statistic module, which you will see later. So stay tuned on our channel, and if you're interested in these kind of application, there will be another video about it. But I think on a high level, we all understand it's part of a CRM functionality that we are providing mostly for small and mid-sized operators, and you can create customized queries and then show it on the dashboard and run them when you like it, and then get insights into your network, what is happening. Let's jump to the next point, Ole. We are providing a high availability module, and we are doing it for different types of servers. So I think especially when operators are getting bigger, it's important that we can run different services in a high available fashion. So which services are we addressing here with high availability as of now?
Yes, as you said, I mean, it's both high availability and also load balancing. So in case a lot of customers coming at the same time, maybe after a power outage, it's always good to have multiple, for example, DHCP server, which we provide with Kia. So, if tens of thousands of modems are coming along at the same time, of course, this will create quite a high load on the DHCP server. And so in this regard, we can also horizontally scale them. Since we're going now the microservice architecture and the cloud native direction, Kubernetes, for example, can gather information about how much is the load and then automatically spawn new DHCP servers. But besides this, we also, of course, can do DNS with our bind, which are doing either zone transfers or are directly talking with the DHCP servers to get all these zone updates. And besides this, of course, also TFTP and TO69 and time of day. TFTP and time of day is pretty simple because they are stateless protocols, more or less. So as long as all the files, the storage, the shared storage is shared among all the devices, it's easy. The more complex ones were DHCP and TO69 as well. And also on the monitoring side, since our polling engine is also, when we started developing it, we had this in mind in the first place, that we wanted to be able to horizontally scale it. And so there we already have a mechanism. And so we have our pollers and then our parsers. They are running together in one microservice. And we talk with each other and know what kind of workload do we have. So what kind of modems do we have to query? And so this is also available. So it's both provisioning and monitoring. And of course, as I said, these were the first steps in our cloud native functionality now, and we are now moving obviously also with the existing software to get this cloud natified as well, you could say.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting topic, and especially for the bigger operators, it's highly interesting to see how the different microservices are scaled horizontally among all the different services that we are providing. Maybe it's perhaps a topic we should also make a separate video to go through a couple of the slides that I presented already earlier and give some of our viewers a more detailed introduction and view about all the stuff that is happening there and all our learnings within this segment, and guide you through the scalability of the architecture.
Sure.
All right, so then let's jump more to the basic framework, so to our core modules like provisioning and monitoring. So I think there also happened a couple of cool things in provisioning. I don't know who of you want to start here and guide us through some of the recent changes and speak about it.
So I would start with the first point. So this release, we introduced a new feature, which is firmware campaigns. So basically, when you have different modems or modems of the same type in your plant, but the firmwares are scattered, basically this feature ensures that you can update them at a schedule that you prefer. So basically, if you have, let's say, 1,000 modems with different firmwares, you can all bring those 1,000 modems of the same type to the same firmware version. We will do it in batches so that you can also roll it back and say, don't want to do all at once. So you can do it maybe every Monday you do 100 or 250 modems, and then within a month you have converted all those 1,000 modems to the same firmware, and you don't have these scattered firmware states, and you have a much easier to manage cable plant.
Yeah, on the other side, when it comes to radius and free radius, we also implemented some new stuff. For example, so far, we were the ones to provide IP pools or IP addresses to devices. We now have a functionality, a customer wanted this, that they want to provide their IP pools on their side, basically on their router, configure it. And then we simply say to the router, okay, what kind of pool should the router choose an IP from, for example, a private IP address or a public IP address. So this is something we allow now that the customer is providing this, and we just suggest from which pool the IP should be retrieved from. On the other hand, we can also now authenticate devices based on their age and circuit ID. So that means that we don't necessarily need to push username and password PPPoE credentials into the device, because some may not allow TR69 to be provisioned, and then this would be a manual step. So in this case, we can just plug any device onto the ONT, and then, as I said, we identify the device based on where it's connected on the OLT. And this makes it obviously much more easier also for customers who are business customers who don't want their devices to be configured via TR69. So this is a great addition. And besides this, we can now also re-provision already provisioned devices, because sometimes telephone number may change, or maybe you add a new telephone number. And now we can basically on demand say, okay, please not on Bootstrap, but on any event that we are running the initial provision again. And this way we can push new info into the device automatically.
Cool, that's a lot of great changes. So let's talk about what was happening in the monitoring space. And I think we have a couple of things here that are important to mention. But yeah, maybe
I can start with
what came to your mind.
The first one, yeah. An important one is that we can do now bandwidth measurements for certain devices. For example, we have a CommScope or multiple CommScope devices. Modems, basically, so cable modems, which have iPerf implemented in their operating system. And now we can talk with them via SNMP, start iPerf measurements, and get basically the bandwidth measurement from the operator side. Because usually, if you want to measure if the bandwidth is good with the customer, what you always have to do is have a truck roll, go to the customer, do the measurement from there. And with this feature now implemented, we can basically do this command from the head end or from wherever you are, and get directly measurements how good the channel is perceived by the customer without having to truck roll. So this is, I think, this reduces a lot of truck rolls and is a great feature, I think.
All right, so then I think behind the architecture there was a couple of changes that we are introducing with the new release. So like there's a lot of new tools that we are interacting with. So I don't know, Christian, do you like to speak a little bit about it?
Yeah, so we have done some stuff on the monitoring side, especially the analysis side. Firstly, the analysis side is now auto updating, so you receive new values whenever they come in. So when you are looking at the analysis page of a modem, you will get updates in a defined interval. So normally it's 10 to 15 seconds. So you get new values every 10 to 15 seconds to see in real time what's happening to the modem. This is especially good for technicians that are out in the field and can directly see how their changes, for example, on an amplifier affect the modem values, so to say. Also for you as the operator and the as a network operator in the network operation center, you now have better alarming. So we go over all the services and do like a roll up and go over all the services, and you get a more detailed and a finer granularity, like error messages or outage messages, basically, so that you even better know what's going on in your network.
Cool, and I think, I'm not sure if this is the right time here to speak about it, but we are also introducing Telegraph to our framework. I don't know, Ole, if you can just speak a little bit about it. What is Telegraph and why did we decide to switch to it?
Yeah, so Telegraph is a binary basically, or a project coming from InfluxDB. So this is the origin. Basically what it allows us to do is retrieve metrics from various protocols. So it has, I think, like 100 or 150 input plugins. So it may be SNMP, might be syslog, might be Kafka. So basically, or for VMware, for example. So whatever you can think of, there's a good chance that Telegraph already has an input plugin for. And so basically what our pre-written, what we wrote ourselves, basically, we could, or at least we could replace some of it with Telegraph. And now whenever we are implementing something new, we always look if Telegraph can already do this for us. And it's not just about input, it's also about you have transform plugins in between and also output plugins, so you can push it into maybe a MySQL or Postgres database. You can also do it with Prometheus, for example. So there are many output plugins as well, and so that gives us high flexibility. And again, it's an open source project which we love. And basically, when you create new sensors in NMS Prime, we auto provision basically the config files for Telegraph and restart it, such that it will, when you don't have to touch anything, it's basically automatically done by our framework.
I would add to this. This is like a quite powerful tool, and we discovered it, and we are like heavily using it for new features. And as Ole mentioned, it's a transformer, so basically you can put any data in and can get any data in any format basically out. And as Ole mentioned, we use it especially to send data to Prometheus or via Kafka Stream to like talk between microservice containers. This is basically the main usage for this, but there's certainly more to come in the future.
Sure, and I think especially for the tier 1 and tier 2 operators, it's a pretty cool tool and framework which we are introducing to our app store and our applications. And on top of that, since we speak already about it, I think it's best if maybe I click here through the slides a little bit. It's not just Telegraph that we are introducing, but it also comes with Prometheus. I think it was not part of version 3.1, right? Prometheus we introduced just in the last couple of months / last year. And on top of that, one of the major changes which the customer will not really notice is that we also changed our database in the background. So before we've been at MySQL, and now we are working with PostgreSQL. And on top of that, there's another database which is called TimescaleDB. So what were the reasons, Ole, why did we move back from MySQL to Postgres, or not back? Why did we move from MySQL to Postgres? And what is TimescaleDB, and why are we using it now?
It's really all about scalability in this case, both for the transition from MariaDB to Postgres. We did some synthetic benchmarks, and we saw that if you go into the millions of rows in your tables, you will see, especially if you have to do a lot of joins, that this will get quite slow with MariaDB, at least in the version we had. And so that's why as I said, we did some benchmarks, and in the end, Postgres really was much more scalable. And so that's why we switched there. It also allows, gives you some new data types, such as IP addresses, for example, which was not available with MariaDB, and also some geospatial stuff, which we're not using at the moment. But of course, it seems it's much more, has more traction these days, and so I think it makes a lot of sense to switch over. And as you mentioned, we're using TimescaleDB, which is also using Postgres in the background. So this is basically our new time series database. Before we were using Cacti for getting all the modem metrics into our system. But this is based on files with Cacti. Every modem basically has its own file, and this created a lot of I/O load when you have a lot of modems updating, because we do update every 5 minutes. And so at some point in time, the I/O load was just too high with Cacti, and there was no real solution. And that's why in the end we switched to TimescaleDB, and we have great experience with it now. I mean, they did themselves some benchmarks, and you can theoretically get up to millions of ingestions per second, which is a crazy high number, which of course we don't need as of now, but maybe in the future. And so I think also on this side of things, we are pretty good equipped for the future.
I think one of the things that I noticed when you switch to Postgres is also that simply the UI runs quicker than before. At least that was like my feeling, which is also something that every customer will experience. And of course, for the bigger operators, it's very important to have this flexibility and the scalability. And it also seems to be that there's a big shift in the industry moving towards these database structures. I'm sure, or there's definitely others around, but from the measurements that we saw and from the research that we have done, the combination of these frameworks and tools seems to be the best, at least in 2023/2024. And I'm super happy that we introduced it all within this release, and it's a pretty strong mix and combination of open source tools and open source standards, and we are putting it under our generalized UI and make it adaptable for the customers.
And while we did the switch, switch to type scalability, we also switched over to Grafana. Before we basically were using the built-in cacti functionality to pan and zoom and to look at the metrics. Now with Grafana, of course, it's much more modern UI, much easier to zoom in, zoom out, and so on. So it's also, I think, much more usable for the customer. And we are also now rolling basically everything we want to graph with Grafana. Was a great experience to get into Grafana now. It's really nice to work with, and also for the customer, it's quite simple to customize because everything can be done via the graphical user interface, which is pretty cool. So I think.
Yeah, and we just gone over this and said, we did update the database, but this was some work that has been done. So we had the last release some time ago, but this means also there was something happening in between, and like the changing the database under the hood is really a lot of work, and you have to do a lot of adjustments, and we had to do a lot of testing and to make sure it really runs flawless, because changing the database means migrating the whole old data to a new basically foundation. And because there were some differences between MariaDB and Postgres, this was no trivial task to be honest.
Sure, it's a heavy lifting, but it also comes with a big reward. So it's much quicker and much more flexible and much more scalable. So that's definitely a cool thing. So in provisioning and billing, there was also a couple of new things introduced, which I'm not sure if we really have the time to go through all of them, but I think what stood out for me is that many of our smaller operators, especially in the German-speaking area, are using the billing module to bill all the internet and the voice over IP products. But we are now introducing much more flexibility when it comes to settlement runs and these things to be much more flexible to also bill TV products with NMS Prime. And that's something that we introduced within the last release. Of course, it was available before, but there were a couple of restrictions that are now gone. I'm not sure if any one of you, I know you're both not really working in the billing segment, but if you'd like to add to this and have other thoughts in mind which stood out in version 3.2, then feel free to add.
Yeah, maybe the separation of the overdue that imports and the settlement run, this was also a big task. I mean, as you said, I'm not an expert in the billing, but I think we'll make another video coming up soon about the details about this. So I think we probably should leave it for this video.
Yeah.
Sure. Christian, when it comes to the deployment side of things with NMS Prime, there's a couple of smaller changes. I'm not sure if you want to mention them here, but I think especially for our developers and perhaps for some of our customers who are a little bit more into our framework, they're important. What's happened in the background?
Okay, so this is something a bit more detailed. So not everyone will notice this or everyone will notice this right ahead, but it's like deeply borrowed in the system. We switched our JavaScript bundler basically. Before we did it via Git submodules and imported the stuff from the GitHub repositories, but now we use like the modern architecture for this stuff. We use npm. This stands for Node Package Manager. So of all the JavaScript dependencies are now pulled in through npm, and what makes it now faster and that you feel that the site runs faster is that we also compress those assets. So basically we bundle those assets into one file, and then they are compressed so that you from before several megabytes, we are now down to like 400 kilobytes for the vendor file, which you really notice when loading the file, the site the first time. And also on consecutive loads, we have much less data to transfer because we are using the gzip compression for the HTML, and so you basically only transfer 200 bytes or 200 kilobytes per data per page load, if even on larger pages. And this is quite a speed benefit, and you really notice it when browsing through NMS Prime. This was a huge step for,
especially if you have your custom or your field text in the field who are using not on the desktop, but on on the cellular phone network, which may not be as good as it can be. Yeah. So I think in this regard, it's a huge improvement for the field text.
And also for the field text, it is important that we improved for this version our mobile responsive views quite a lot. So before we had some views that were quite not good for mobile view, but we tackled most of them, and now it's really good to use NMS Prime on the mobile, out in the field. One for the speed side, and secondly also for user experience. So every view is now customized for mobile devices, and this was done this release because we switched under the hood to Tailwind CSS, which is another custom CSS framework, and this allows us to keep the bundled CSS size really small. So we only use the CSS classes that are really in the code. So our CSS files got from 400 kilobytes to like 7 or 10 or something like this. So there's really they shrunk really down, and this also allows for more speed because the browser has to render few CSS classes and so on. So a lot of performance stuff is happening on this side, and also UI stuff is really better now with the new release.
Yeah, that's great. And I think especially the performance improvements is something that everyone will notice when using the new version. And also in respect to what you said about the usability on mobile devices. So when I'm touring to our customers, I got recently a couple of complaints about, this view, not complaints, but like this view I like to, or one of our field techs like to see like in this way, and here it should be more like this, adaptable. And that's great that that there's much more stuff happening in this space, and that you updated also these mobile pages and make them much more flexible. And the speed side of things, everyone will notice using the new release. I think we are reaching the end of our video. I'm not sure if I forgot anything that is important to mention. I think there's a lot of more changes happening, but I think the big ones we tackled. I'm not sure, Christian, if you like to add something that stood out for you, or if not.
Maybe something that customers will notice right after the update. So the UI changed a bit. So the sidebar is now looking a bit different. Tabs have a new view, and also for the breadcrumbs, you now directly see which state the device has, but depending on a bar right before the element. So this is something you will notice when running the new release immediately, which hopefully improves the user experience quite a bit. And if you have some feedback, feel free to comment or reach out to us.
All right, Ola, do you like to add something?
Yeah, from my point of view, really all the new modules we added, I think this was quite a big task, especially also in the FTTH market with Altiplano and SmartONT. I think this is what really stood out for me. And we see it now, as I said, customers are coming to us and saying, okay, you didn't have this, now you have it. So I think this is, for me, the biggest improvement for this release.
Okay, then thanks everyone for watching the NMS Prime podcast today. Stay tuned. If you like the content that we are doing, then give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe our channel. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.
Bye.